The Constitutional Council in Mozambique is set to make a pronouncement on the 9th of October election results in that country. The country's electoral commission declared FRELIMO's Daniel Chapo as the winner, and he was followed by Venancio Mondlane. Mondlane has since rejected the results. He has called for massive demonstrations. Now there are fears in Maputo that the chaos will continue if the results are validated. SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo joins me in studio. Thanks very much, Khaya, for joining us. So, my understanding from speaking to Dumela Mashoho earlier is that the Constitutional Council is going to be making the announcement around 3 p.m. South African time. Tell us more.
Well, certainly, Nompu. So 3 p.m. is the actual time that has been confirmed. Obviously, everybody's on tenterhooks as to what will the council say in terms of these results. As we've seen that, I mean, it's been very chaotic. But also, when you look at Mr. Mondlane, for example, he's been threatening that, so the issue around electoral justice is a priority for them. So if the Constitutional Council, for example, is validating Mr. Chapo's victory, so then Maputo will descend into chaos. And those are the words that are really used. But obviously there's a great deal of concern, especially because, I mean, it's the festive season. We know Mozambique, with the coast that they have, South Africans oftentimes frequent Maputo during this time of the year. So there's quite a lot at stake here.
Yeah, no, there is. We'll get onto the economic impacts shortly. But last week, I remember you covered Ronald Lamola, the Minister of International Relations, meeting with his counterparts from Mozambique in Mpumalanga. Do you think they were meeting to try and anticipate what may happen if indeed the Constitutional Council does affirm the decision that was taken by the IEC, the equivalent IEC there?
I think certainly, especially because they do understand the implications. If Mozambique is facing problems, inevitably that's going to affect South Africa, and these are very cordial neighbours, and they share quite a lot. But also, I think in the main, it was about mitigating what we've seen, you know, every so often, the disruptions from Rosana Garcia from the Mozambican side and Libombo port of entry from South Africa. So I think there was an understanding, but also for South Africa, understand the gravity that if this persists, if the crisis remains unresolved, it's really going to affect the country and many others as well. The landlocked countries really were using this all-important port of Maputo.
It was great to see that people that needed to get into Mozambique were able to get through, you know, ahead of Christmas as people celebrate and so on and so forth. But what do we know about what's actually happening in Mozambique? And, you know, and on top of that, the economic impacts. We know that South African business has been affected. The likes of the mining sector, which have been trucking material to Maputo in order to send their mining, you know, material to end markets, because we have problems here in South Africa in terms of our ports. There's so many different areas. What do you know about the impacts?
So far, but also what has been really interesting from the human rights point of view, you know, the Mozambican law enforcement agencies, they've been accused of being slightly excessive in terms of how they've been trying to deal, for example, with the demonstrators. So that has been a very great deal of concern. But going back also to the interministerial meeting that's happened here in South Africa, I think there was a clear understanding that this must be brought to an end, especially when you look at the importance of the Maputo corridor connecting N4 all the way to Maputo, but also so many businesses that are using this corridor for the goods movement, for the petroleum sector, for example. In fact, Minister Lamola said if this continues, inevitably it's going to affect South Africa's economic hub, especially given the proximity of Maputo, the port, to South Africa's economic hub, but also many other areas as well. So the impact is quite massive. For example, from the Road Freight Association, they're always warning that, I mean, the Maputo corridor, it's located geographically in a very good space for them to be able to move everything, given the challenges that we have here in South Africa. So I think there's a clear understanding that the impact is enormous, and this should really be addressed. And what has also been very interesting is to hear from the outgoing president of Mozambique, Nyusi, where he said he doesn't want to extend his stay. He's going to vacate office come the 15th of January. That's when you understand understand, an inauguration will take place. But in terms of the Constitutional Council, it is quite a very massive task that they have, because there's quite a lot dependent on that announcement.
Well, we wait and see. Thank you so much, Khaya, for coming into studio. That was my colleague, Khayelihle Khumalo.